Thousands of years back, our ancestors went off pretty tall palm trees and probably in our case pine trees, and then they developed caves and they grew bigger and higher until we arrived to about this point when we're building massive construction complexes, massive housing complexes, and here we are in the Minsk World and we're about to make a review of it. I'm no architect, thank God, and my company is dealing in real estate a little bit. So it will allow me to sketch some sort of an opinion, generic opinion about the area, which is made out of quite a few opinions. A lot of things came from the reviews of the real users, from the chat groups and from the real people. And some things are quite logical and obvious, and I'll try to avoid even conclusions so that you could draw up your own picture and see what kind of massive housing area we have achieved over here. My name is Andrei, I'm a certified translator and a real estate concierge. My company has been relocating people to live in Belarus over the last 4 years. Location. It's always a key to selling or buying a real estate piece because, well, you don't really need a luxury place sitting in a very remote, lost place, and you don't really want to live in a shack which is based in the very city center and walk away from anything. You need to find some compromise. So here the location seems like a compromise. It's nowhere near the city center, like many real estate ads may lead you to believe. It's on the site of the first Minsk airport, which is long gone, just the station is there. And the place has been tied up to the metro system of Minsk with 2 more metro stations. We'll cover them. And is like a short ride away from the central area of Minsk. Central area of Minsk is vast, and there are several areas which can kind of declare that they are the city center. Again, it's very vast. And well, that's what it is. As it happens with massive plans, developer here changed his, let's say, declaration several times. Generally, it's still the same, like 3 million square meters of housing built by 2030, some 40,000 residential apartments, which will make roughly 60% of the development here. Among other highlights, there'll be a huge supermarket, Avia Mall. It's just been kick-started. We'll run a quick review of that as a part of this clip. And a world-class stadium, which, by the way, got scrapped. And a couple of other things. Obviously, polyclinics and schools. They promise some half a dozen of each. And let's hope it's going to be attractive to the population. Researching this place only through online reviews is kind of stupid and is not very reliable because comments vary from the excited reviews of the Moscow pensioners who threw in some of their hard-earned buck here to make it a holiday apartment of theirs, like a home away from Moscow. Sort of a recreation of its own, I guess, and to people who just resent the concept, resent the layout of these palm trees, if I may, and the other kinds of people who do not even seem to have any reasoning for their position. So let's try and have a look into this area from a bystander point of view, let's say, and walk around and see what we see and maybe ask a few people. They're not going to be on tape anyway. And see how the whole thing is cracking on and what kind of long-term future it may have. It's a little bit naive to predict long-term future. Even experts have mixed opinion about how it's going to work out, like in a decade from now. So far, it's here, it's selling and renting out well, pretty well. You may or may not believe this, but it's 6:14 in the morning and some 2 girls are tossing volleyball out there, and that's probably something hard to believe to the neighbors as well. Speaking of the neighbors and everything, we may point out that the population growth patterns of Minsk are quite universal. People are coming here for the better employment and education prospects, so province population is moving in by the thousands, and this creates the audience for the huge neighborhood like this. From the very beginning of their sales, with fairly democratic pricing, like 850 euro per square meter or something 4 years back, the developer has taken a huge step forward in that respect. Now it's around 1500 euro, depending on the offer, and in this video we're not going to talk prices too much. The intended audience is just everybody. Long-term investors, people who wanted to go the simplest way, get some money, stack up some money, get a couple of flats and just resell them without changing anything. More complicated guys who decided to throw in some coins and redo the flats because they come out as bare walls, essentially, as bare no walls, just the four walls that separate you from the neighbors. So they put in some tiles, some wallpapers and everything, and sold them, and that made some handsome profit in 2023 and 2024. Some long-term investors, such as buy, renovate and rent out. These are guys from the province, like about to be retired, or retired couples who come in here once a while to stay in Minsk for a couple of nights for some kind of occasion, and to earn some coin to add to their rather unpretentious Belarusian average pension. Different reviews and comments on the different videos show that there are folks from Moscow who are looking to stay away from this huge city and get a place in Belarus as their holiday destination of some kind, so they just lock it up and move for a season, and there is no profit anticipated over there. And another populous group of people who is supposed to be living here is the youths, the folks who are being sponsored by their parents, coming over from the province to enjoy the advantages of a huge city. Quite recently, the developer got their local management changed almost entirely, or completely. I didn't quite get the personnel cuts, but the dramatic change of the management means that the horrendous delays of the houses, for which the city introduced finally penalties to the developer, are not going to take place anymore. The houses will be commissioned in time, and the quality supervision, quality acceptance is going to be much better than before, which is one of the milestone issues of this area. The social and cultural cocktail of the audience that we outlined contributes to the multiple issues of this area, issues from the user's point of view, or the neighbor's point of view, because neighbors are the users. The folks who come from everywhere and who did not necessarily earn what they bought, but mostly they are buyers, they are direct buyers, they're not subsidized by the state or anything, and that's theoretically meaning that they do care for their common property. Multiple social profiles, so to speak, over here creates the issue of noises, smells, approach, like and treatment of the shared property and other things. Smoking, noise, speaking of those beats, toilet culture in all respects, but mostly meaning the actual use of the sewage system, which creates occasional floods over here. Self-improvised renovations, when somebody like myself, having gone through a few rounds on YouTube, decides to do the electrics and then the grounding missing. I don't know exactly what it is, but you have to make it to avoid any unnecessary electricity shocks to the neighbors downstairs. When somebody like me decides to complete their renovation phase, like electrics or something, without having any appropriate training, that creates issues to the guys downstairs. Again, this is not to criticize the whole living area or to exhibit my personal point of view over it. That's just for you to create a certain field of facts and jump to your own conclusions at some point. It's a fabulous Saturday morning, guys, and we're here by the oldest building in the complex to kind of run an assessment of pros and cons of the Minsk World. Having not lived in the Minsk World, having no friends who stick around here, I can only take a casual glance and point your focus of attention towards points you may want to investigate. People are obviously different, and therein lies the interesting nature of humans. Some people want a quiet place, some people want some urban commotion, including that train in the distance over here. Some people want a quality lodge, and some people want something classical that has been there for a while and will not collapse. So let's see what exactly we're dealing here with, given that unfortunately I don't have an architect here. I haven't been living in the complex, at least for a few nights. I can only spot the obvious stuff and ask around people who were really dealing with different issues, quality issues or some other issues, and it's a bit hard to judge here. Most of you, of course, are watching this video in order to make up your mind about Minsk World being an investment or residential area. The trouble with structuring the pros and cons is about the difference or the different approaches of people, their different priorities. Let's share a few thoughts about the concept itself. A 15-minute city, which is within a reach from the city center. Tonight we will evaluate the metro and other things. Is a kind of nice sounding idea. The infrastructure like kindergartens and schools and polyclinics is catching up, but we can only judge about their availability, about their capacity once the construction comes to an end. Children's infrastructure back there is in use, and some of it looks okay. I mean, I'm not a child to judge, I'm not a parent or something to share some first-hand feedback. So the things that create some question marks about the concept are firstly the massive construction itself. One has to be fairly bold and fairly resourceful to kickstart such a massive construction site, keeping in mind all the things for the people to live comfortably, although this is a middle-class place. We might say middle class, give or take, because some of the houses are a bit lower, they have fewer apartments per floor, and that kind of loses the noise, reduces the neighbors' presence and stuff like that. The top major drawback of the place I would outline is its massive nature. It's a lot of floors, it's a lot of flats, it's a lot of humans moving around all in different ways. And it may be just a little bit too overwhelming for somebody who wishes to have some quiet life, be it family life or some, retirement or even renting the place for their daily use, going to work or working remotely. Working remotely may be a good idea, but then again, it's up to you, your lifestyle, and what you find here, because everything seems to be here. That's the plus of the massive construction project. The Hippo supermarket, round the clock, by the way, and quite a bunch of other things. First floors are normally commercial venues. There are coffee places and other places opening up to keep people happy and juiced up for the day. So that's not necessarily a drawback from another angle. Number two major concept failure is the architecture. Of course, these houses are nice and trendy, and as it happens with the houses that just came up, which were never built before somewhere else, which were never taken through the long winter season, through our kind of weather, they are bound to have some issues which people will only discover once they check in and finish their renovation and then discover mold on the walls or something like this. Each and every house is bound to have its unique shortcomings, and here expert knowledge is required, which will not be available in this video because unfortunately we have no resources to hook up with a company that has been running around with laser rulers here and commissioning flats, accepting flats from the developers, or running an expertise for the buyers from the previous owners, who may have saved a penny or two on those joints in the heaters that would leak for 3 or 5 floors below at some point, and stuff like that. And this is something that's a matter of specific shopping case and your specific ruling, whether or not you need such an expertise or your eye is pleased and you are ready to buy it. Concept failures about the design include all sorts of things you can find in the reviews. Mostly, of course, they're Russian-speaking reviews. Imagine a room, which is a nice spacious room, windows there are French windows reaching the floor, everything's fine. I'm not sure if they still do the heaters just down below the windows, so the heater is kind of sticking up in your view. Haven't seen these in a while in the reviews, but imagine that such a room is split by a huge solid brick wall, and that brick is kind of half step reaching the glass. The purpose of that wall is really unclear. The quality of that wall is really lousy. What the developers wanted to achieve with that, how they saw its use and stuff like that. Imagine a loggia in a house which has this ragged facade and it looks kind of cool and eye-pleasing from outside, and your loggia, you are the owner, your loggia starts and finishes just half a step away from the threshold. You open the door, you step over, and you can only rest your foot onto the loggia, not 2 feet. You can't stand there and enjoy the view with your coffee. It just doesn't happen. So that kind of thing, maybe I'll recall something else and add it to the clip later, are things that are hard to explain, but still they are not drawing back the money, and people are coming in and buying stuff and believe that they have got a good deal. Not to mention the 4, let's say, black walls, 4 unrenovated walls that you're actually buying, all sorts of wires and pipes sticking out of places, and you have to marry this all into a huge, nice renovation concept, which would be your investment project or your family residence for a while. And that's another thing that is a global undertaking, because there is no solid designing of the rooms, there's no solid layout. The bathroom has to be here mandatorily, and the kitchen has to be here, so people improvise. And when unskilled people improvise, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. People tend to watch a lot of YouTubes like you guys do right now, and then they start doing renovations. You know, it doesn't really take much effort to lay the cement floor or put the wallpapers or tiles where they belong, except when people start doing it, especially such, intricate, intimate things like electrics and plumbing. Things may go a little bit wrong, and although a leaking pipe is kind of obvious and it can be tracked and fixed, the thing like grounding, you may read more about it because it's kind of complicated, can get your neighbors downstairs electric shock by just touching a bathtub, and it's not trackable, you cannot discover it anyhow, it's just going to be there forever. Unskilled repairmen or cheap repairmen tend to do things, a little bit cheaply. So that creates issues like floods as they are washing down the leftovers of cement and other things where they can only wash it down, not to mention their lifestyle. Loaders, potters, movers, the muscled guys who help your furniture on the 16th floor while the lift is being fixed by the utility company. These folks tend to solve their toilet matters in a very simple way that does not really excite neighbors in a positive way, so that's another problem. Floods, all sorts of leakages, all sorts of, shit floods essentially, all sorts of rain floods are reported from the Minsk World, not necessarily on a daily, but on a weekly basis. Now that we're having a rainy summer, this has been quite a trouble over here. lifts in these houses are foreign, which is kind of more eye and ear pleasing than the locally made lifts that can probably last through a nuclear war. But people prefer glamorous glass-plated things, panoramic views and stuff, and often in those taller houses out there are 3 lifts. One of them is panoramic, which is kind of cool. As you're going to work, you can sample the district panorama and get inspired for the day. But as the people are battling with renovation next door, they really don't care about scratching them or not scratching them and protecting them with drywall boards, OSB boards and such like, removing those boards when they're finished and fixing the lifts when there are too many sofas injected there and the mechanisms of the lift are broken is another trouble. So 2 or 1 lift only may be available for such a high block. When people are going to work 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, this may be a bit of a challenge. So again, house to house dependent, this issue may occur or may not be there, and this is something to look into. Kind of a curious thing to complain and maybe a thing to laugh to our Western audience. Those houses which are kind of next to one another, especially these thin guys over here on this side, lacking your privacy if they are, oriented towards another building, because all the sides of the buildings have windows, unlike the Soviet ones, which may have overlooked courtyard or park or something like this. And with those French windows reaching the floor, you are kind of exhibiting your life to the neighbors next door, which may or may not perturb a really dedicated urban resident. Personally, I don't care much, and others may be skeptical about this. So, of course, some may suggest curtains and sun blinds, so this is not much of a problem. But such a dense construction is not necessarily a good idea, according to some actually final end buyers. I guess I'll be here in the evening to see if those kids' playing grounds are in any active use, but these blocks are fairly packed with young families, so the actual children's activities here are on a pretty high level, and the families are walking around and those baby trolleys and everything, and the youths must be attracted by these only pieces to play with. Last but not least, structural issue is the maintenance company. They have these Happy Planet guys, which are the all-complex utility guys who are contacted through an app, I guess, and you handle all the issues through them. It kind of loses you the hassle of having a meeting of the building. Everybody's away, attending to their potato harvest and everything, so people here are hard to organize and to run a little election of a local block chairman. So the chairman exists for you already. Trouble is, they seem to be taking a little while to take your issue into account, to basically confirm its existence, to send in some people to evaluate and quote you some deadline for the resolution. So at every step of this process there may be a problem. These were reported by people who are the real users, and this is something you may want to keep in mind when you're dealing with a purchase like this, a property like this.